different backgrounds. Finally, I will turn to Amendment 171F in the name of the noble Baroness Lady Yardley, my noble friend Lord Sandhurst, and the noble Lord MacDonald of River Glaben. We should, of course, encourage parents to engage with their child's curriculum, to allow them to support their child's learning at home, but as the noble lady and other noble lords expressed very clearly, that parents should feel confident that they understand what their children are learning. But we also think it's vital that schools and teachers are focused on the activities that add the greatest value to pupil outcomes, and it is a priority for the government to reduce teacher workload. So we're concerned that introducing this amendment, which I know is not the noble lady's intention, but it could drive teachers to be focusing on tasks that become very burdensome. We do believe that there are already ways for parents to engage with their child's school curriculum to the extent it's needed to support learning at home. My noble friend Baroness Stroud spoke about online learning, and for example, the Oak National Academy provides packages of optional free adaptable digital curriculum resources and video lessons which pupils and parents can access to supplement learning.
Could I just clarify with my noble friend the Minister that my comments about online learning was that they could put the materials online so that actually parents could have access to what was being taught in school. So it wasn't actually that I was encouraging online learning, so I just wanted to make clear. Thank you.
But I think in the case, so just to be clear, the Oak National Academy, as my noble friend may know, was set up during the pandemic to provide online resources, but it continues to make those resources available to any parent or child who wishes to use them, and indeed to teachers who want high quality curriculum resources to teach in a physical setting. Furthermore, the statutory guidance for relationship and sex education is clear that schools must have a written policy in place for these subjects and must consult parents. And my noble friend Lord Sandhurst referenced our guidance in this regard, that schools should provide examples of the resources they plan to use when they consult in order to reassure parents and enable them to continue the conversation started in class when their children are at home, which are exactly the points I think that your lordships raised this afternoon. The department's published guidance to support school engagement with parents and leaflets for schools to provide to parents when communicating about the teaching of these subjects. And as was referenced, my right honourable friend the Secretary of State has asked the Children's Commissioner to look at the RSE curriculum to complement the work that the department is already doing to try and improve the consistency and quality of RSE teaching, to make sure that children are being taught well and that we've equipped teachers with the right tools to teach these very sensitive and difficult subjects well.
You go first.
This is incredibly disappointing. As a reply, I'm worried. I don't know whether the Minister's offered all she's going to offer, but just because this isn't about using the resources on the Oak Academy rather than an outside organisation. It's not about how you communicate with parents. The amendment was nothing to do with that. I'm quite sure the government's got lots of good ideas to give advice to schools about how to communicate with parents. This was very, 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 very specific, that schools are using materials from outside bodies which saves them work, which saves them having to rewrite the curriculum in line with what the government wants them to do. And by law, they are not permitted to show the parents. Now, please forgive me if she was about to address it, but I don't want her to sit down before doing that, and I'm getting a little bit worried about the tone of the response so far.
I'm sorry, the last thing I want to do is worry the noble lady. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to reassure her entirely, but what I would like to do is just, and I was coming to this point, so forgive me, was that specifically on the intellectual property loophole, which I've understood rightly is the one that the noble lady raised, if the noble lady would be agreeable, it would be helpful to meet and just go through some of the examples, because I think we would like to be confident that the law is being interpreted correctly, and without seeing the examples, it's difficult for us to establish that. So if the noble lady would be agreeable, we could look at this in more detail.
I hesitate to ask this, but I simply don't understand. The material has been relied on and shown to the children in class. What good reason is there why parents should not be able to inspect that material within the school?
I think my noble friend raises, there are two issues that underpin it. So one, I think, just to finish the point on the intellectual property, which is where I think he was initially, perhaps I misunderstood. I think we do want to be clear that the law is being applied correctly, and we're happy to take, honoured to take the time to establish that and clarify that for the House. And so that would be one point. I think the second point is I absolutely understand the spirit of my noble friend's question. And when I spoke to colleagues in the department who've previously been head teachers, their answer was that they absolutely understand the sentiments that my noble friend expresses, but they are also concerned that one could end up in a situation where there are vexatious requests and that a school becomes unable to cope with them because of the number of requests. So I'd just like, with the permission of the House, to be able to explore that in more detail.
A very good point was made earlier about this not being a matter of veto. We only have to remember what happened with the teacher who was, driven into hiding for the RE teacher because he offended local activists from the more extreme Muslim wing, not the majority of Muslim parents, I hate to add. We get that. Nobody's saying that. And if you're coming back, so could the Minister clarify that none of us are trying to give a parent's veto to what's taught? But could the Minister also acknowledge that this is not just a technical question and that the government are in danger if you don't see what's going on? The parents will actually start to withdraw their children from these lessons because they're hearing all these terrible things are being taught. The Minister pointed out that if you could see the materials, or somebody made the point, they would be reassured. I think they'd be horrified, but that's not the point. The point is you need to be able to see them so you're not relying on reading in the newspapers what's in them. Surely the government have got to tackle this. You've got to be sensitive to it.
I understand the noble lady's point, and I don't think I said for a second that I thought the House was suggesting that parents should have a veto. If I may, I'll take this point away and will write to your lordships on it.
Dangerous avenue the department has chosen to go down in this, and the head teachers you've spoken to. If the issue is to stop parents being vexatious and demanding too much of schools and asking for materials, they can do that now with almost all the curriculum materials that are taught in schools, and they don't. The only ones they can't see are these in the most contentious areas of the curriculum. So I'm not worried about parents being vexatious and asking for all the curriculum materials. That's not what happens at the moment. And I'm not sure how there can be any justification for the one area where by law you can't see the teacher materials happening to be the area where parents would have most concern about curriculum content.
All I was trying to say to the noble lady is I think that there are two steps in this. The first step is the intellectual property law being applied correctly? And then secondly, how does that then translate? But I think we have to answer the first question first. But I will undertake to give a full answer to the House when we have a chance to look at this in more detail. and it would be extremely helpful if your lordships have specific examples, if you could share that with us so that we get a broad sense of the issue.